Hello, folks, and welcome back to That Time We Woke Up in a Podcast and Had to Explain Manga, our heated adventures, overanalyzing manga that we find interesting. My name is Sam, and this week, I couldn't make it. How are you hearing this recording, you asked? Well, I made a few special arrangements to make sure that I could provide you the intro, because this week, my friends Matt, Jay, and Jacob read Full Metal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa, chapters 1 through 13. And if you're familiar with equivalent exchange, you might be wondering, Sam, what did you pay to make these arrangements? Oh, they'll find out.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Over Manga Cast. Tonight we are reading Full Metal Alchemist, and most importantly, we're without a Sam. That's right. I know, I'm surprised too.
How unfortunate.
Sam joined a roving band of mercenaries and became homoerotically involved in their leader. Let's hope he doesn't do anything rash and there's a giant cascade of demons.
This is entirely accurate. Well, no cap.
Sounds like something he'd do.
A little bit.
But yeah, this week we're reading Full Metal Alchemist. So let's go around and see what everyone's familiarity with the series is. I'll go first. So Full Metal Alchemist, I don't think I'm going to be alone here. I've watched all of the original anime. I've watched all of Brotherhood. I've not actually read the manga, so reading was a first for me. Jay, what is your familiarity with Full Metal Alchemist?
Sure. So similarly, watched the original and then watched Brotherhood. And then for long-term listeners, you know that we also watched the live-action movies. So this is going to be a first shot at reading the original source material. I'm excited.
Listeners, no, I did not say I'd watched the live-action movies because I scrubbed that part from my brain.
Those were classic.
And last and potentially least, who knows? Jacob, what is your familiarity with Full Metal Alchemist?
I have watched most of the original anime, a little bit of Brotherhood, and I've actually read a decent amount of the manga, about how far I got in the anime. And I don't know why I haven't experienced more, because I love this series, but I can never sit down and experience it all the way through. And it really annoys me. Why do I bounce off of you, Full Metal Alchemist? I want to love you, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's gotta be me.
It's gotta be the ADHD.
Why do I only have ADHD when it comes to this specific series?
Yeah, no, normally you've got the opposite. You've got weird hyperfixations.
I know. Should I not be obsessed with this? This is so perfect for me. Why not? Why am I the Sam in this case where I know all of the lore? How did this happen?
Who knows?
And I also watched the live action movies, which are obviously the highest form of this series.
Yes, the pinnacle.
Oh, look at you two bragging about not passing out during watching the Full Metal Alchemist movie.
I mean, you're telling on yourself right now.
No, I think he's right. We are the ones being telling on ourselves right now, Jay.
But yeah, so in case you're unfamiliar with Full Metal Alchemist, which you might be, I don't know how you listen to your manga podcast. Full Metal Alchemist starts off a bit of in medias res as we kind of jump into the first couple of arcs are really kind of like the two brothers are little vagabonds going town to town, solving all problems while being like military cops. I guess they're magic cops.
Yeah.
They are military first, and then they have like a subset that's like magic.
I don't know. They do a lot of magic.
I think what they're supposed to be is what Jay described, but their actual practice is the opposite, where they kind of do what they want, and being in the military is just it's basically a badge that one of the two brothers can just wave around to get out of problems.
They do. It's beautiful.
All I know is the beginning of this manga really loves telling you how shit it is to be a state alchemist. Really doesn't seem like it in what we read. It's really nothing but benefits. But
I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Ed himself, and sometimes in many cases, despite himself, is so affable and so willing to help people that the initial reaction is state alchemist equals bad, but then the plot happens and everyone turns around on Ed specifically by the end of the particular arc. Because there are a lot of cases where a lot of people get like an immediate negative reaction to Ed. It's just, he's charming. It's kind of hard to hate him.
So I guess we start at the beginning, because the beginning is the best place to start, as we dive into the City of Heresy arc, which, in case you are unfamiliar, which you might be, who knows, I have now said this twice, as the brothers find themselves in a desert town that has what turns to be a running theme in this, a bit of new religion. They are dealing with their despair by falling into religion, and Ed is your cousin who came out as an atheist at Thanksgiving and decides he wants to tell everyone about how their god is fake.
I love Ed as a character because there's so much about him that it's like, for me personally, like the way that he conducts himself is so aspirational, and yet at the same time he has so much room to grow, because God, he can be a jerk sometimes. Like,
he's also quite short.
Yes, his defining character trait is that he is a tiny, small, little person midget. You can barely even see him. You know how I said that there was an aspirational aspect to Edward Elric? I want to be him because I am also short.
Like, Al kind of has to act as that other half to this duo to kind of ground him. He's just like, listen, you can't just go into towns and tell people their beliefs are shit and then not expect there to be an adverse reaction.
I forgot how much I loved Alphonse Elric, because he is such a great character. He's so done with everything, but in like a charming and almost wholesome way. Like, I don't know how he pulls it off.
Poor baby.
You guys are stupid, aren't you? Like, almost like he's apologizing to them for them being stupid.
Yes.
Oh, I love
a lot of that. I apologize for my brother. He is special. He has certain talents.
He's very excitable.
Social interaction is not one of them.
Oh, but yeah, we find ourselves in the frontier town of Riol, I believe. Something like that.
I think it's Lior, but I actually don't think that the manga mentions the name of the town.
Yeah.
I don't recall it.
I looked that up on the wiki, but just hearing those two names simultaneously, I think they're identical, just swapping L's and R's. So
which is a thing in Japanese, yeah. So I think both are true. Yeah. I think depending on the adaptation, because I remember Lior from the anime, but again, I don't think the manga mentions it.
So anyway, we find out that the people of this town are worshiping the sun god Jared Leto, and really poor choice there. Which
I can't even correct him. It's the sun god Leto. He's not wrong.
Yeah. And this is all under the guise of this new priest who has come to town by the name Father Cornholio.
Okay, yes. That one I will correct. It's Cornello.
Cornello. Cornholio. Cornello. Same, yeah.
Cornhole.
Yes. He's not a great guy. That's all you need to take from this.
They make sure you know right away he's an evil priest. Like, they are not subtle about it.
So I will say this. All of what we read is very choppy. Like, it gets its plot done. And like, I didn't know this was monthly before we started the reading here. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense that this is monthly. Because you've got like compact story that needs to get a whole bunch of beats on, and then needs to throw in a bunch of stings of like, ooh, what is this mystery? So people have something to think about for the next month until the next chapter comes out. It's just interesting how like you structure a monthly story.
And I will say this first arc, the Father Cornello arc, really does a very good job of fitting that space. It means that the villain isn't exactly very three-dimensional, is the one, I suppose, critique you could have of it, but like it's not trying to be. This is a story setting up Edward Elric and Alphonse Elric. That's what the purpose of the story is, and it does it very, very well.
Yep.
Because it gives them an obvious enemy to overcome. He is both powerful yet extremely vulnerable, so it can paint the Elric brothers as underdogs until they show what they can do, and they can quickly overcome and show how badass they are. And it has a lot of places for Ed to be right about a lot of different things, but also show the ways in which he is not complete as a character in the room that he has to grow, as mentioned earlier.
And it does this by introducing us to a character by the name of Rose, who is identified. Yeah, she's identified by being a cute girl in this sea of NPCs.
Yes. Also, I personally did not expect her to be introduced so early on. I don't know why.
This is the arc she appears in. I
don't know. It was delightfully exciting that, Rose showed up and she's best girl, as we all know.
Yeah. She is working for Father Cornello because she has dove headfirst into this new faith that's shown up because there's a little rumor going around that the sun god Leto is so powerful he can even raise the dead. And this is talked about not like it's some kind of myth or something, or this is snake oil they've been sold. This appears to have actual evidence has been proven to these people, because they speak about it like it's a fact of life. Yeah, of course the sun god Leto can raise the dead. And Rose is particularly interested in that because we'll find out through the entirety of our reading, but most of the setting of Full Metal Alchemist takes place in a country. Mm-hmm. In our reading, unnamed, it doesn't really matter, where there has recently been a civil war on the eastern side where a religious minority was persecuted and then, spoilers alert, genocided off the face of the world minus one person.
We'll get to him later.
That has caused a lot of death and destruction and a lot of people who are hurt and looking for salvation. So someone immediately opens up a snake oil shop and starts selling these people salvation because, as we established earlier, Father Cornello is obviously evil. And we get the same bit we see literally 5 times in our reading where they go, "Don't worry, I'm the Full Metal Alchemist." Full Metal Alchemist? My God, he's made entirely of metal. Not him.
Not him.
It's me. Oh my God, you're the Full Metal Alchemist? Yes, because my arms are made of full metal. That name doesn't translate very well, does it? Shut up.
Oh, but it makes for a really, really cool splash page eventually.
It's really just a bunch of exposition dumping.
Yeah.
It's establishing the world.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about alchemy. One thing that I can't help but note, I have to point this out. Legendarily, Ed's recipe for the human body is just wrong. I don't think any part of it is correct.
I mean, there's a reason they made some kind of weird Shoggoth instead of their mother.
That's one of the most famous beam me up. They never said beam me up Scotty type facts. Is that Ed's recipe for the human body? The names of the ingredients are correct, but the amounts, every single amount is wrong.
Well, see, Jacob, you just misunderstand. That's what people are made out of in this universe.
Ah, yes, that must be it.
Like how they only barely mention it, but all the planets in Dragon Ball Z are full of styrofoam.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, basically, Ed has a complete heel turn and says, "Nope, I give up. I'm totally willing to follow this god or whatever." And Rose is like, "Really? Yeah, take me to your leader." And it's literally, he gets brought to the priest. The priest is just like, "Oh, well, gonna murder these kids." Has those kids basically secretly assassinated by his little guardsmen.
The priest recognizes who they are, or I think he's told their name.
He says Edward Elric, the Full Metal Alchemist, which considering the number of alchemists there are, a lot of people are intimately familiar with Edward Elric, as if.
I mean, he did get the title at 12.
Yeah, and I mean, news, especially of someone so young, because they're like, holy crap, this really young, talented alchemist just got, certified. That's big news.
Yeah, I guess he's been a state alchemist for 3 years at this point, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's 15 during our reading.
Yeah. So he sends his mooks to go assassinate him. Rose is just like, wait, why are you trying to kill them? And one of the mooks literally goes to Rose, you dumb girl, didn't you know we was always evil? We're gonna murderize these people. The priest told us to do it. And I'm like, your secret organization really isn't that secure.
No, or Rose is just canonically dumb, naive. Maybe
naive and desperate is what Rose is. Though in the defense of the mooks, they don't say they're evil. They say Ed and Al are evil, and that the His Holiness ordered this. But like also with an evil villain grin that you'd have to be stupid not to notice. Though to be fair, Rose does immediately turn against them by this point. The guy did just shoot Al's head off, which I find it interesting. The fact that like it's like. That can't even be a 38. Like, that's a very small pistol. How did it take a human's head clean off when you shot them in the eye? They really should have seen the empty suit of armor coming.
Campus now.
See, they've never actually fired the guns before. They're clergy. This is the first time they've been asked to shoot someone. They're just really gung-ho about it.
You know what? Fair.
Oh, but yeah. Then they cut to talking to the priest. Rose is just like, hey, yo, what's going on here? You're gonna bring my boyfriend back to life, right? And he's just like, not now. Also, I'm gonna have the two-state alchemist fight a chimera. Also, I've got a philosopher's stone.
The first trick that Ed and Al do is they hide Rose inside the empty suit of armor that is Al.
Mm-hmm.
So that she can, because it's like, the priest immediately knows that, like, these two, okay, they recognize I'm using alchemy. I'm not going to be able to grift them. I'm just going to be honest with them because I plan on killing them anyway. So he does a villain monologue, and Rose hears it. But
yeah, you'd really think Father Cornello, after this scene, would be really careful about monologuing his plan.
He's not very smart.
Oh. But yeah, so that gets Rose to switch sides after it's then made abundantly clear that he's never going to resurrect her boyfriend.
Well, no, actually, the thing I like about this is when Cornello says, yes, I'm using alchemy, but I'm still going to give you the thing that I promised, Rose actually stays on his side. And like, she has this like apologetic look on her face as she like walks away from the Elric brothers. I think that's a really strong scene, especially with how it ends.
Yeah. Well, because that's the only option she has. Like,
yeah,
I will say I really like her character motivation here. She is like in despair. Like there is no way out of where she is, and she's just clinging on to anyone who's willing to give her like even a fake answer.
What she wants, and like she's grieving and not grieving in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like a big part of the reason why she's not grieving in a healthy way is because a cult leader found her and is feeding into a negative feedback loop. It's sort of like the Chainsaw Man thing where it's like, yeah, this is how cults work. You know, say what you will about people being stupid or gullible, but vulnerable people are the people who are most likely to like fall into cults and things like that. And even go with them against all reason and logic.
Unfortunately, stupid people tend to be more vulnerable, but
yeah, that is also true. Yeah, stupid people are usually more vulnerable. And I will say, I'm not arguing that Rose is a smart person either, because Rose,
I argue that she's pretty average because
she is average, but like she's not exactly a genius who's falling for this either.
She's also willingly believing it is the she wants to believe it, and that's more valuable.
She needs it to be true, so she's ignoring her own brain.
She's doing her logic process in reverse, so she's never actually going to get to a reasonable solution.
Yeah, exactly.
So regardless, we're spending a lot of time on this one chapter. So basically, we get a fight scene. We get some clothes damage where it's revealed that, that's why you call him the Full Metal Alchemist, because his arm and leg are made out of automail, which is really cool. We get a whole bunch of scenes where they really ham up the fact that chimera that gets summoned is doing a lot of damage to his arms and legs. And then it doesn't. Also, this chimera is insane, and I guess just exists in the world. Keep that in mind. But yeah, they take care of it. Not a big deal. And yeah,
because this is just showing. It's like, okay, now we get to show our protagonists are cool and strong.
Yeah, they have cool fight scene. Fight scene is good, and then Father Cornello is defeated, and like his Philosopher's Stone breaks as he fuses his hand into a gun. That might happen afterwards, but
because initially, like he's got them pinned down with a Gatling gun he transmuted. Ed and Al run away, shenanigans ensue, and then the big moment is he gets Cornello to reveal his plan again, repeat his plan again, this time Cornello really should have noticed this, in the fucking recording booth he had just done his sermon in that day.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest right here. This is really dumb. And this screams of, we only have 5 pages left to wrap up the story. We spent too long on that cool fight scene with the Chimera. Nope, it's just a really funny ending. I'm like, oh no!
Yeah, I think it works because Cornello is panicking, and honestly, he's not really an arc villain. He's the first bad guy to show off how the world works.
It is a gag manga ending because you even have the crowd shot where you've got people slamming their face into their hand, just going oh, I can't believe he fell for that kind of deal.
Yeah, but yeah, that he's trying to Ed has disarmed him, so he's trying to transmute a new weapon, and he accidentally transmutes the gun into his hand. But that doesn't work either. And it ends on a much more somber note of, they tease where the thing is going to go, but this particular story ends with the quite somber note of it's a really sad scene of Rose saying, what am I supposed to believe in now? And Ed doesn't really have a good answer for her.
Not my problem. I just tell people their gods are dead.
I mean, to some extent, yeah, kind of. That's sort of the problem. That's Ed's weakness, you know? He could afford to be more empathetic. He could afford to, care a little bit more about the state that he's left the world in.
But Ed doesn't care about people's feelings. Ed cares about being right.
Yes. That is, in fact, Edward Elric's main character flaw.
Yeah, and then we find out that Edward Elric had clearly befallen some kind of genie at some point in his life that caused him to have this terrible curse, which is whenever he interacts with someone, immediately after, homunculi come and kill that person.
To be fair, they are actively following him for reasons that I think we all know because we know Full Metal Alchemist, but as far as we got in our reading, Ed is important to these homunculi because of some nondescript human sacrifice shenanigans.
I was about to say, yeah, our reading really paints the homunculi as, yes, the main character. We're following them for our own reasons. And it's literally that same sting every single time. I
will say, yeah, no, it's one of those ones where it's I don't know 100% how I feel about it because it feels very artificial as it is.
It gives no information, but it's literally just drama for the sake of drama, and that's fine.
Yeah, the thing is it ultimately is paid off in the end. But when you know what that answer is, you can see how empty everything they say is. They're just saying, remember, we exist for later.
It's a very fill in the blank for this isn't clues about what's happening. This is, there is a reason, and that's fine. It's just that happens literally 7 times over.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first couple of arcs of Full Metal Alchemist are 1 chapter long, and at the end of every arc, the homunculi come back to remind you that there are greater machinations, which means, for the first couple of arcs, every chapter ends with the homunculus saying, remember, Evil!
Remember we exist! Don't we have cool character designs? Man, when Envy shows up, it's literally the worst, because it's just hey, remember? I can turn into cute girl. I can look cute and young, I guess.
Yeah.
Envy is very ambiguous.
Yeah.
The androgyny of Envy is so great.
I mean, that's on purpose, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, because Envy turns into both men and women, like as close to a non-binary character as a character gets
And
in the day and age when this was
creatures.
made.
Sometimes animals as well.
And animals, you're right. Well, not in our reading.
Look, Envy's gender bar is a constantly moving slider.
Envy is just a mood.
Envy is a mood. Yes, actually, yes, that is the best way you can describe Envy.
It's really
Envy,
a mood. It's just a vibe. It's a concept.
Envy, I'm very concerned. What is your gender? This is a mood ring. What do you?
Yes.
Oh, I understand.
That is Envy.
We love Envy on this podcast, it seems.
Yes, we do.
Okay, the next arc, they go on a train to a mining town.
Because, we have to have trains.
Because of reasons.
I legitimately forget if this chapter even opens with an explanation. I think they're literally just on the train to, there are coal mines in the region.
So do we actually have at this point a objective for Al and Ed? What are they after at this point?
Yeah, they have actually explained, because when Cornello admits that, yes, I am using alchemy with the power of this here philosopher's stone that turned out to be fake, they have by this point explained that we want the philosopher's stone to turn our bodies back to the way they were before we failed human transmutation.
Yes. Because again, alchemy operates on equivalent exchange, and the rhetoric out here is that if you have a philosopher's stone, that kind of
you can break the equivalent exchange rule.
Yes.
Which we did see Cornello do. So
it's a hack, if you will. Hack the system.
Yeah, the reason why Cornello's stone was fake was because it basically ran out of power and crumbled, which a true philosopher's stone is not meant to do.
Yeah, they don't actually say that in our reading, but that is what happens. Yeah.
Well, Ed mentions that the philosopher's stone is supposed to be a pure substance. The running out of power, I think, is the part that I'm pulling from prior knowledge.
Yeah, but yeah. They're just like, hey, we can't get our MacGuffin in the first chapter, so it was a fake one. But that is what we're looking for. So anyway, they go to a mining town. I'm going to be real honest. This entire arc is mostly just a bit, so I'm not sure how much time we want to spend talking about it.
That's fair.
Honestly, quite frankly, the thing about the mining town arc is it's really cool. And I think the only thing that's like really important about it is it shows the way that Ed operates. Mm-hmm. Like it shows off his sense of justice and the way in which he will like choose to or not choose to intervene in things. And it shows like he has like a trickster vibe to him that makes him really interesting. But like, in all honesty, most of this arc is better enjoyed read yourself. So hopefully you have.
Yeah. Like just the like bird's eye view summary is basically they come into this mining town. It's being taxed to hell because they get no tourism because there's been a giant civil war in the country in its relatively recent past. And it's still kind of recovering from that. So no one's traveling, and especially not out here. So they've got no tourism, and they're a coal mining town that can barely make any money. Everyone's charging through the nose when these nuke bees come up. They kick Ed out once they find out he's a state alchemist, because state alchemists are dogs of the military, because the military's bad. Why is the military bad? Because we've got a lieutenant here who is taxing them to hell. Why is he taxing them to hell? Because this guy is corrupt. Why is he corrupt? Because he owns the factory for some reason, which isn't how a bureaucrat works.
Production.
And
well, I think he used his corruption to buy the mine.
Yeah, like he basically rolled in with a lot of cash and said, "I'm buying that."
Yeah, because his position and his ownership of the mine, I don't think are directly connected. I think he just used the resources of his position to get the money to buy the mine.
But yeah, basically Ed gets dinner with him because he's just like, I'm a state alchemist. I outrank you by several degrees. That's not confirmed here, but that's confirmed later. And
it's pretty clear from the like behavior of all characters involved.
And basically, the entire thing is Ed basically sees this guy as a piece of crap. He's offered a bribe, and he's just like, whoa, I don't play that way, home slice. But you know what way I do play? Hey, Alphonse, I'm going to turn this entire truckload of coal into gold. But brother, that's illegal. And you're a state alchemist. Shouldn't you uphold the law? I'm like,
Shut
what
up.
are you, a cop?
Yeah, like literally. That was
That's
my
basically
immediate
their
reaction.
whole relationship.
You freaking narc? What the heck?
So Ed turns the entire car into gold, which is weird because that is what happens. Like he legitimately turns the coal into gold and then uses it to buy the mine, and then goes like, hey, by the way, I did like a crime getting all this gold for you, so how about you just sign the deed over that you just gave it out of the goodness of your own heart, and we just pretend this gold didn't exist. And he's just like, ooh, you're a little crooked state alchemist too. And he's just like, and he's just like, yeah. And then he does the exact bit you're expecting at this point, goes to the bar and just like, well, I'm going to sell it to you for a very small amount of money because I'm a good guy. And then the lieutenant pops in. It's just like, hey, all of that gold turned into coal. What's the deal here? And Ed's just like, I don't know what you mean by gold.
You gave me the deed to the mine for free.
And Alphonse goes like, hey, brother, did you just turn all that gold back into coal? Yep, I did. Cool.
It turned into coal immediately before we left.
And I thought, I haven't seen the anime in a long time, but I thought in the anime they explained it and he didn't actually turn the coal into gold. He just covered the gold. He like tossed a bunch of coins in there and covered blocks of coal with gold, so he didn't actually transmute any. But now that I'm saying that out loud, it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah, because it's the same thing in the end.
He bait and switched them.
Yeah.
I do like the implication in this universe that the entire gold market is being kept up artificially by the state government, because at any point, anyone who knows alchemy could just turn.
I mean, I understand the need for that, because yeah, if you had alchemy, you could literally say, I can make anything.
Any commodity can no longer be a basis for a currency, because unless you make it illegal to transmute that stuff, then anyone can just make their own money, which makes money worthless. Like, honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I guess another nice thing is that it does establish that world building, though that's kind of logical world building you could probably guess without it saying it out loud, but it created for a fun scene. I really like this scene where Ed like triple fake outs everybody.
I genuinely do not understand the economy in a world where alchemy exists, but yeah.
It's illegal to transmute gold, and if you do, you get
far be removed. Just the economies of scale one person using alchemy can create things completely invalidates like all craftsmen.
I think the big thing, and this is a case very much so where I feel like this is an issue of tell and it's told and not shown. We see Ed all the time, and quite frankly, I think it's easy to forget. Al is also an extremely good alchemist. These guys are really, really powerful, and the fact that Ed can turn all of that coal into that much gold is unusual. Most people who like dabble in alchemy couldn't do that. You need way more time and effort to get good enough to do that sort of thing.
So is Father Cronello an idiot, or is he a really good alchemist then?
He was leaning on the fake philosopher's stone. He even says that out loud. Like he basically he can barely do alchemy without the stone.
Yeah, so essentially he's just like a big, very charismatic like hype man.
Hold on. Why does the stone allow you to make the stone doesn't know what a gun is?
Correct. You still have to be able to infuse it with your will, if you want to say. But what I was saying is essentially the difference between Al and Ed's demonstration of their power, I think, and Al references this, is the fact that Ed is able to he does not have to use a transmutation circle for all of...
I think the big thing is like the scale of what you can change. Ed and Al are really strong. But the problem there is that is only ever said. It's never shown in a meaningful way. And honestly, I don't even know how you would show it besides just showing bad alchemists. But
yeah, and also you have to remember we're so early on in the series that Even
We're
if
very
we
closely
were to,
following the protagonists.
yes, even if we were to, right out of the gate show the scale, we'd have nothing to really
Compare it
to be able to conceptualize. So
I think there is an argument to be made that the series could have done a better job of creating like showing a overt difference between a normal alchemist and the Elric brothers.
yeah, because at first, and this was just a take that I had, is at first I just thought the big deal was, and they do allude to this, is just because of how young he was, which already in itself is like a feat. He's a savant, he's a prodigy. But there's also the other side of it of not only is he super young, he's also very, very powerful. So that also plays into why he's so actively pursued, and why as we'll read more into, why certain sectors or certain factions of the government kind of use him as a threat. But yeah, that was just, I guess, being my first time reading it, I just really appreciated understanding, I think, the world a little bit better, as opposed to, we're following the protagonist, yes, but I feel like there was more world building, at least with the early chapters.
I think to a large degree, and we're gonna try to focus on the manga, obviously, because that's what we read. But I do feel one thing that is worth pointing out is I'm mostly familiar with the original Full Metal Alchemist anime rather than Brotherhood, and I do think the two of them actually work really well as companion pieces, because I do feel like there's elements missing from the manga that's better explained in the anime, and vice versa. There are certain elements of world building that both of them do better than the other. And I think it's the monthly schedule of the manga is the reason why it has, they're not full on world building holes, but they're places where the world building is a bit fuzzier, that it's like, I see what it's going for and I'm going to squint past it because I can assume there's a good explanation for it. Like with the thing of how does the economy of scale work in a world with alchemy? I just kind of assume that it's a matter of Ed and Al are just absurdly powerful. And I know from outside sources and also some things from our reading that is just that they're unusually powerful. Whereas there are certain other things where it's I think the vibe of the world comes across better in the manga than the anime does, because the anime is an action series that is, the animation carries a lot. We move on from the coal town we were in for some reason.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real honest. I said I didn't have a lot to talk about with the last arc. This is the battle on the train arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extended fight scene.
They have a fight on a train to show you the cool stuff you can do with an alchemy fight.
Yeah,
that's literally it.
I mean, why not? You have not only a major mode of transportation that is slated for long distance travel. You have the raw material of a train. You have also the passengers who, stereotypically are being held hostage for reasons.
You have the wheels on the track that go round and round.
Yes, you have
round
those.
And round.
Yes.
Round and round.
I suppose the way it's kind of framed is not only, obviously the battle is the forefront of it, but I find that just, that's the trope of just having train battles.
It's the Great Trade Robbery. This is a cool extended chapter long action scene to close out volume 1 so that you end on a high note. The only narrative thing of substance is that it introduces Roy Mustang.
Which is an essential, yes.
Which Roy Mustang is introduced with author's notes that he is going to be a fan favorite character, and really just
announced it, and it became, if you build it, they will come.
There's calling your shot,
This is the popular character for this series. All right then.
I mean, isn't he?
Yes. He is FMA heartthrob, because can't have it be Ed or Al, because that's kind of weird.
Yep. We also get introduced to Lieutenant Hawkeye. She doesn't do much in this chapter, so.
She's a good lieutenant. She does lieutenant things. At least in this chapter. She does a lot of cool stuff.
Yep. Oh. So anyway, we move on to the next arc, which is
which I hate.
What, you're not a fan of the Shao Tucker arc, otherwise known as every place I could find it written as the Talking Chimera arc?
I know, I hate this arc, but it's so integral.
It's the famous one.
I'm gonna be real honest. I was surprised this is one chapter. Like,
honestly, like the big thing for me, and this is the only other time I'm going to try to mention like the adaptations of this manga. It feels a little underbaked. There's like one specific moment where I feel it's underbaked that like almost all of the other versions, we don't talk about the live action movie.
That did have this scene in it.
But it's like it feels like this could have afforded to have been a little bit longer for one specific thing. And I do think that like the adaptations of it do a good job of fleshing this out a little.
It needed room to breathe, because as this chapter is, it feels really... I feel like the anime version of this story feels like you're watching a movie, and this kind of feels like you're going on an amusement park ride of that movie.
Yeah, it feels like the Cliff Notes version of its own story, which is funny because this is the original version of it.
But I mean, that's actually very telling of, the mangaka or those individuals involved in adapting it. They're just kind of like, okay, this feels like something that could be very impactful and heavy. We want to really do it up on the screen.
Yeah, because honestly, how this arc gets started, because I feel remiss that we'd have to tell you what the plot of this, like, literally one of the most famous anime plots in history is.
People who don't even like read or watch anime recognize this reference. It's creepy.
This is the most famous Full Metal Alchemist arc in the entire series, and one of the most famous arcs in anything at all.
I would be willing to bet this arc is more well known than like the Cell Saga.
I would think it would depend on circles.
It would depend.
The fact that it'd even be an argument, though, is kind of...
Yeah, the fact that it would even be an argument is kind of telling of how big it is. Yeah, no, and I think it entirely depends on certain circles.
Ed and Al get assigned by Mustang. Mustang is like, hey, you boys need to go investigate this guy because he does biological alchemy. Biological alchemy? Oh, wow. Oh, man. Hey, Shao Tucker. Yes, it's me, Shao Tucker. Did you do biological alchemy? Yes, I made a talking chimera. What did the chimera say? I want to die.
That's ominous.
Yeah, a little ominous there.
Oh, really? How'd you do that? Oh, well, I spent a lot of time and I eventually did it. I'm really good. Read all of my notes. Do you see my adorable daughter and my lovely dog? We love both of these characters. They'll be around forever. Hey, Shao Tucker, I always had a question. When did your wife leave you? About 2 years ago. When did you discover that talking chimera? Weirdly enough, shortly after my wife left forever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. I'm going to not think about this. Hey, Shao Tucker. Yep, it's me. By the way, the deadline came up for my research and I discovered a talking chimera the day I needed one. Wow, that's really amazing.
This guy literally takes procrastination to the next level, dude. Seriously.
Shao Tucker should not be doing biological alchemy. He should be making chairs. Like, he should be a human factory that makes chairs for people, because that would make him money. I think his deal is he wants to be famous, but that's getting, I don't know where we're going with that. But then it's just like, oh, we made it. This monster I made. Wow, what an amazing dog with long hair that can speak my name.
And Big also brother? Says Big Brother. Yeah,
you didn't tell him to do that.
Yeah, the thing that tips Ed off in the manga is the chimera says something that wasn't said in that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the entire thing is they're trying to like translate from Japanese that it's Edward. What's the honorific for brother? Like
Onisan.
Onisan. Yeah. So that it's constantly like Onisan, and it's just like, oh man, that thing used the honorific for big brother, like your little girl said. Hey, Tucker. Actually, this is when Ed asks about his wife, and it's just like, okay, you're kind of just showboating here, Ed. Like,
yeah,
like I don't know who
you're turning, and then like everything just kind of explodes at once. You're just like, oh no,
I think the art sells this really well, because the situation that Ed is in is like the instant he hears the chimera say Oni-san, Big Brother is the
He
translation.
knows at that point.
He knows the whole story. And it's like, he's just confirming because he wants to be wrong.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
But it's like, he's not wrong, so...
But I even think that, I don't know, this could be something from the adaptation, but it's just like, doesn't he at one point, like, notice that it's just really quiet? Or he's not able to find the dog or the daughter?
He when he gets there, he does find it weird that Nina and Alexander don't arrive to greet them.
They greet them very aggressively. It's adorable.
Alexander in particular, it's very cute.
The problem in the manga, that's the same panel twice.
Yeah,
is the entirety of the relationship.
Where's my glomp? I didn't get greeted with a glomp, so it feels weird.
That exact same picture of the dog didn't appear.
He's so cute though. He's a good pupper.
That's a word that we haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, that's the Shao Tucker scene, and I'm like, the one thing in the manga is I feel like this really lacks having that relationship built up with Nina and Alexander. And like, just now as we're talking about this, I kind of realize that's because this is structured identically to how all the chapters were before it. Like, it's meant to be like, oh, look what evil things State Alchemist can do. And it feels like after this chapter was written, the mangaka was like, actually, no, I really want that to be poignant, and I want the characters to think about that. So it really affects the characters, and it's brought up repeatedly through the rest of our reading. But like, the chapter itself is structured as if it's just another vagabond adventure.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of interesting because I felt that they did a good job of, because like with the vagabond stuff, you get endeared to the characters that Ed passes by. So I felt they did a good job of making Nina and Alexander feel like you feel the loss, because this is the first time where it's like Ed's passing through one of his vagabond adventures and someone just is broken irrevocably. So like, I feel that aspect works. The thing that I felt was very underbaked, and the reason why I felt like this arc didn't, I don't want to say it didn't work in the manga, because it's like, it's functional, but it doesn't like live up to the legendary reputation it has. Tucker has this whole "we're not so different, you and I" speech at Ed, and they like spoke twice, I think. And it was like a 2-sentence conversation. Like, that I feel is the part that's underdeveloped here. There's no like connection between those two characters.
Kind of comes off as almost like a monologue of like crazy insane guy just screaming at Ed.
It comes off as not being true, despite the fact that it is.
It is valid. I mean,
and that's why it affects Ed so heavily. But I feel like there should have been some time spent of Ed and Tucker getting to know each other and like talking to each other and becoming friends, maybe even developing like a mentor mentee relationship.
Yeah, the level of betrayal, like fundamental betrayal, is not here.
Yeah.
Because this is a person Ed has talked to like 2 days in a row. Like, this isn't.
Yeah. And that I feel is where it needs more time, because it's like, honestly, just keep having Nina and Alexander be cute. There's not much more to develop in that relationship, and I feel like that's why that aspect works. But a big part of the impact is you're a monster too. And like, Tucker is wrong in this, because like, it was a stupid kid making a stupid mistake as opposed to him being greedy.
Like, you are an adult, you're supposed to know better.
But the reason it affects Ed so much is because like, there's that tiny kernel of truth, and it's like, that is there in the manga, but it doesn't have the impact it should, because there was basically no time spent on it. Like, the things that Tucker is saying is true in an aggressively literalist sense, but because we didn't see a rapport get developed, why Ed doesn't just have the logic of, no, we're not the same, you're just evil. Like, that should be his reaction based off of what we saw them interacting at.
I at least got the undertone that Ed doesn't actually care about what, like, he cares that Shao Tucker is a monster, and like, the comparisons he's drawing are really just him projecting the like constant self-hatred he has. Like, he blames himself for everything that has happened. he does
Which is
that.
fair. It is his
frequently in this.
fault.
Yeah, like no, he 100% should be blamed for what happened. We don't actually see the actual scene in this. It's just kind of like weird trauma flashbacks, which I actually really like. But
Oh yeah, that yeah.
I do want to bring up one thing about chapter 5 that I kind of thought was really funny, because there's this one full page spread immediately after Ed is realizing and accusing Shao Tucker, where he's just like, what happened to Nina and Alexander? And there's a really cool panel where it's Ed looking like just completely evil. There's a strip in the center of Alphonse just realizing what's going on the second Ed's telling it, and then Shao Tucker just looking on, and it's really cool art. But then Shao Tucker has this line that's just insane. It's, I hate perceptive brats like you. And I'm like, what do you mean perceptive? This was obvious. Like, you're like, just the idea that this person would just have his daughter disappear, and like your wife disappearing can be explained away. Your daughter disappearing does not.
Here, I'm going to introduce you to 2 members of my family. They're the only members of my family that I have. Oh, they're gone.
Now they're missing, and there's a talking dog.
And like the idea that he was acting out of desperation and he had no other choice, in his mind at least, is very clear. It's just the line, I hate perceptive brats like you, is just...
I feel like if they had... brain. I feel like if they had more of a rapport, a better line could have been put there. The art is spectacular. That's one of the best panels in that volume.
It's really great. It's just such a terrible line. Oh, man. So, yeah. Weirdly enough, the other thing I thought is really funny is they just leave Shao Tucker in his house. And they're like,
they beat the crap out of him and then say, no, we can't kill him because, you know, they still see value in this research. Ed is torn.
Also, they don't want to just kill somebody in cold blood.
Yeah.
You say beat the crap out of him. Like, Ed punched him in the face. Beats him within like
literally another punch of his life.
I don't know. He's not unconscious. He kind of has a swollen eye. That's about, like, he got beat up, but like, he can still walk. Like, that's not, they just leave him in his house and they're like, we're going to arrest you in a couple days whenever someone from Central gets here. But they're in Central, so it's like,
I mean, it's like they don't have like arrest authority or something. Is that something that
No, Ed should be able to arrest him, but I don't think it's a couple of days later. I think it's done that night. They just leave to go call Mustang.
Oh, right. And then Ed's curse of the second he interacts with someone, somebody comes to murder them, happens again.
Yes.
Because thing that I remember about this world, part of the world building, is that their technology is they do not have cell phones. So
yeah, they still have like pay phones and
there's a lot of phone booths of we have to run out and alert headquarters.
Because this is like, I'm gonna spitball a random. It's like roughly 1910s. I have no particular reason for picking that, but or actually, I guess 1920s. Conquerors of Shambhala sets a specific date for when Full Metal Alchemist.
I was about to say Hitler's in Conquerors of Shambhala, so
yeah. So yeah, it's the time period between World War I and World War II in an alternate timeline. Conquerors of Shambhala is not technically canon to the manga, but it does basically canonize the time period because that the movie does say we are an alternate timeline of the manga, basically. Like not literally, but it functionally establishes that.
I do want to point out, because how this ends is you know what? They do have military police set outside the door, so they put him under house arrest. That makes sense. He is a high-ranking military official, so probably what honestly it is they don't have anyone who ranks above him to arrest him is probably the problem. So that's some bureaucracy. That makes sense. Okay.
Because the person who would have the rank to arrest him is on his way from Central. It's Hughes, by the way. We're getting Hughes soon.
And I just love that somehow Scar finds out about this, finds out where this dude lives, and then breaks into their house to do the murdering in the house. And I'm like, okay.
Yep. Yeah, actually, it is sort of funny because I was mentioning it's like it's not that weird that people keep dying circa like Ed meeting them because the homunculi are following him. But no, this is totally a case of Scar literally by chance happened to pick the sewing life alchemist as his next victim right after this happened. How about that? Like, Scar couldn't have come like 10 days earlier, 10 days later.
I can only assume it's because he heard people talking about him being arrested for doing the crime and he changed course, because he does seem to he's not surprised by the fact there's armed guards out front.
Okay, so on chapter 6, it actually is just that he does overhear a commotion.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, far be it from me to say that at least in our reading, Full Metal Alchemist has a lot of things happen because of coincidences. But man, it does happen a lot.
Well, is it also on a similar vein? Is it also out of pocket to assume that Scar has been tracking?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not unheard of for Scar to overhear that, hey, they're arresting the state alchemist because he turned his daughter into a monster, like that.
What the issue is it's right on the line of verisimilitude. It's not quite visible hand of the author, but you can kind of a little bit notice that the plot needs to happen.
Oh, yes. Also, a coincidence happening off screen isn't that much better, but
yeah, no, it's fine, but hopefully the manga doesn't keep doing this.
The manga doesn't do a more insane coincidence. Oh wait, no, 4 chapters from now. Okay, we'll get there. But yeah, so Scar is then introduced, which brings us to the next arc, which is the Scar arc.
Wow,
where
so creative.
I know. Welcome to early manga arcs. Alphonse also has the closest we get to the flashback of them at home, because we still haven't gotten their backstory.
We've gotten snippets of their backstory. Like a lot of cases, they'll like explain in words, but we haven't like seen it diegetically.
Yeah, we get dead mom blaming Ed for doing this.
Ed has a nightmare.
We don't know if that's not her ghost.
Mom is just very pissed off at her sons, and that's just glossed over.
Apparently. I mean, if my sons turned me into some kind of weird eldritch abomination because they got the formula for human life wrong, like...
Yeah, that would be pretty disappointing.
Man, that one guy I slept with at least twice, he wouldn't have gotten that formula wrong.
That was so awkward.
Okay.
I'm just saying, before we met the Elric brothers, like, the tension, the longing, uncomfortable. Continue.
Yeah. But yeah, they're investigating the body. It's basically Shao Tucker has been exploded.
From the inside.
Yeah. And Yummy. Nina was also exploded from the inside. Oh, I remember what I wanted to bring up. In our reading, at least, Nina's not in any pain.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That's a little bit odd.
She's just like a dog person. It's not great what he did, but like it really changes things. Like it's because the anime has got that really poignant scene of Scar putting the dog out of his misery. In here, Scar is just a murderer. Like,
yeah, Scar.
Because he sees the.
We don't want to make too many.
Yeah.
We don't want to make too many adaptational comparisons, but I do think the fact that the thing that tips off Ed in the anime being Big Brother, it hurts, makes it hurt for the audience more, and then also to some degree makes Scar less. Scar is just a religious fanatic murderer in this. Like there's not a lot of like positive to his character,
especially because just based on Shao Tucker's track record, he's getting better. Like his first homunculus just wanted to die. This homunculus just had some labored speech.
Or chimera.
Oh yeah. Those are different.
He's working on the homunculus. That's what he was going to do next.
No, the homunculus were going to find him and kill him, and they're like, you interacted with Edward Elric. That is a death sentence in this manga. We get introduced to Envy, looking their best. Really, for no reason. Actually, I'm now realizing
It's introducing the fact that envy exists. I do
And
also
shift, like, appearances too, which is important.
Yeah, I do recall, like, as I was reading it, a sort of funny moment of Cornello's back? Wait, is Cornello a more important character than ever? Oh, Envy. Envy gets introduced way sooner than I thought they did.
Yes. I told you, envy is a vibe.
But yeah. So then we get the fight where Scar finds Edward Elric because someone just says his name too loud in a crowd. That Scar was just standing
walking by.
Also, Scar is making no attempt to disguise himself. Like, he's just a biggest Valen man with a giant scar on his face, and he looks like he murders people. Like,
I'm just saying, he's very proud of his heritage and getting revenge.
Yeah, like he's literally just walking from place to place murdering people. Like, he is more a force of nature than a character in this arc.
Okay with this.
Yeah. So, he's basically keeps just spouting the lines, those who go against God wishes deserve to be destroyed, blah, blah, blah. Like, just really just religious dogma.
Yeah, it really is. Scar comes off as nothing more than a religious fanatic who happens to be incredibly physically powerful.
Like, he even has like the weird line where he seems to think that Ed having automail is still an affront to God. So it's not even like he hates alchemy. It's like he hates anything that isn't natural. It's kind of weird. But yeah, he's literally just an antagonist.
Yep.
Oh, and then we get the scene where he hits the automail arm and it explodes into gears, which is really cool. Also, a weird ethereal essence in the center that I assume is supposed to be electricity, but it could also be Ed's soul. It's almost certainly electricity.
They've used that that lightning effect has been used for alchemy in other cases. So
fair.
Yeah, that's like the destruction effect of alchemy before the reconstitution.
Oh, also, Alphonse got hit in the side and is basically disintegrated with a giant hole in his body. And then Roy Mustang, really, in just such a strange play, has a gun in his hand, sees this like serial killer like a known serial killer on top of a victim and potentially about to attack another. And like he shoots in the air as a warning shot. Like,
so I recall distinctly Sam, who is not here right now, mentioning that that this scene builds into Mustang's arrogance and like his character development. I gotta say, it's played as a joke, which, if I have any one complaint about the Full Metal Alchemist manga, there are cases where it will go into funny stuff in what should otherwise be really serious scenes. That, like, it doesn't like take you out of it entirely, but there are certain cases where it's like, I feel like people should be taking this a bit more seriously than they are.
Because the joke in here is literally he shoots the gun in the air as the warning, and then when it turns out a fight's going to be breaking up, he throws the gun back to Hawkeye because he's more dangerous than a gun, which is funny. But to say that's like character motivation is kind of...
It's like, not shown in what we read is the kind of important part.
It's like what a lot of what we read is that like in the moment, it's then used later on as motivation. Like Nina's death. What happened to Nina is the actual motivation. In the actual chapter, I don't think it's as effective as Edward talking about it constantly in the chapters that follow up. I think that has the emotional resonance to it. I think in the moment, it really just reads as this is the drama panel for the chapter.
Yeah, because the later stuff gives it the time it needs to breathe.
And this is Roy shooting a gun in the air for a bit, which is partially in universe is the funny thing.
Yeah, he has to assert that he's the one in charge.
Well,
and it also establishes that Hawkeye is Mustang's keeper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, apparently this entire military is charged by the bullet except for Hawkeye. Because we can establish there is a battalion of soldiers with guns, and no one but Hawkeye takes a shot at this serial killer. Like,
I mean, canonically, Hawkeye is not only like very proficient, but also is the one who's like stands on business. Everyone else is kind of like hesitant.
So it's like making jokes about the I think the country is actually called Amestris, if I remember correctly. Making jokes about the incompetent Amestris military, they don't come off as fully incompetent in the manga, but there is a level of like there are so many goofballs, and it's like the goofballs are like the characters we're supposed to get endeared to, but it's like there are so many situations where it's like just shoot him. Making Hawkeye look badass in contrast to the other characters does in fact genuinely make her badass. Her fight scene here is really cool.
well, except for the scene where she just shoots at Scar's feet for some reason.
It's a warning shot.
Well, he's dodging, but
she's shooting at the ground though. Like she would have to be shooting at his feet for him to dodge that. Like,
well, but the point I'm getting at here is, whilst it's elevating her, it is making the non-named characters look like putzes in comparison.
Yeah,
like
it
makes the rest of them look bad.
Why are we talking about any of these characters when Lieutenant Armstrong is introduced and punches a hole in
Louise Armstrong?
Oh. Also, it started raining at some point because Mustang's useless in the rain.
Yeah, it had been raining all day.
Because coincidences. Like,
we need to establish Rogue Mustang's weakness. Mm-hmm. The raining started off as ambiance for Ed's lament.
Yeah, and it's just a really cool fight scene with Armstrong. Like, he's just really buff and really good.
And very charismatic.
And then finally, Mustang gets a rifle and is actually allowed to make a shot, which means she's using those handguns as a handicap. Like,
can't have him letting.
Oh, no, I spoke too soon. She only shot his glasses. He managed to dodge the shot somehow. Okay.
I think we're overanalyzing it. Womp,
we
womp.
really are.
It's a manga fight scene.
Yeah.
If guns worked the way they do in the real world, then the superpowers wouldn't be a thing.
If you want to hear more of us talking about guns and shonen manga, go listen to the Demon Slayer arc where I'm just like, why do they have guns? And why are the guns better than swords?
Yeah, the point of this is that we get to see his reddish fallen eyes.
And he disappears. Everyone's happy they're alive, and we get introduced to Hughes, who shows up at the very end, and we get a lore dump about Ishval.
Yes.
I believe I mentioned it earlier in our episode what Ishval basically is, but it's an oppressed religious minority in the east of the country.
Well, they're not just a religious minority. Well, they're
an ethnic minority as well.
Well, I also saying like philosophically, which ties into religion, but I think they just have a different philosophy of like the same.
Not to be too reductive, they're essentially Muslims with the serial numbers filed off.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
They're heavily inspired by Muslims, at least, I feel is a fair thing to say.
Yeah, I would say heavy inspiration. They're not meant to be an allegory for Muslims, but they are heavily inspired by.
Do we ever, well, from what we uncover in our reading, we don't know too much about Ishval's like power system or anything like that, but essentially what we do see is they just have a different form of quote unquote magic that they use.
No, the only one that we interact with directly is Scar.
And Scar seems to be constantly saying everything that goes against nature is a sin against God.
Yeah.
Okay, I've read it differently, but all right.
I mean, this probably isn't going in the episode, but like the entire thing about Scar is he's got like Western alchemy tattooed on his arm because his brother was a like convert.
Healer.
Yeah, but he he doesn't have like Ishvalan alchemy. Ishvalans don't like alchemy. He like was a betrayer of his culture because he's just like, but alchemy has a lot of good. And then he was killed by alchemists. So Scar used half of
it wasn't an Ishvalan thing that Scar is using.
Yeah, I think the only real thing we get from the lore dump is that, like I said earlier, Ishval was a genocided minority. Then that was done by state alchemists who were used as weapons of the military, which is where they get the like tagline we've heard repeatedly that the state alchemists are the dogs of the military because they've got magic powers.
Yeah, the heavy implication is that state alchemists were a thing before the Ishvalan Civil War, but the first time they were used directly in combat, as direct combat military personnel, was this particular Civil War, and it has created an image of the state alchemist in the people's mind that is distinctly negative.
Yeah. It seems to be a fairly recent change that state alchemists probably before were like just government researchers.
Yeah.
And they've uncovered a military use for them, which is shonen action battles.
Mm-hmm.
Which I really do want to apologize about everything I've said about Kagurabachi. I guess this the series from 20 years ago who did a similar concept. I guess it's original. Good job for having original thoughts, Kagurabachi.
It never fails.
But anyway, they got to go back home because
they are in a state.
Because Ed is missing his arm, and he can't do alchemy without his arm. And if he can't do alchemy, he can't fix up Alphonse, who is currently in pieces. So they need to get on a train again, because that's how you get everywhere. And they can't go alone, so they need a chaperone. So they send Louis Armstrong. Not...
Yes, Louis Armstrong.
They send Louis Armstrong. What a wonderful... No.
Well, we have to remember, not only are they esteemed state alchemists, they also are miners. So probably escort is appropriate.
Literally the only person who says that is Lieutenant Armstrong, and then later
Yeah, the bodyguards for the last bit.
Like, yes, you are very talented, but you are still legally minors. So.
They're more concerned about the fact there is a serial killer who wants to kill them on the loose.
Because they are both currently defenseless.
Yeah, so they are getting on the train. And this transition to a new setting seems like a good time for us to transition into taking a break. So we'll be right back.
Quick journey home to go reflect on things.
We were left off with, we were on another train. Ed and Al were traveling with
If I wasn't sick
General
right now, I'd
Armstrong?
strangle you.
I'm not quite
Major.
Major Armstrong?
General Armstrong is his sister.
That is true.
Yeah,
His sister is very scary.
we don't get to Brigadier General Armstrong in this reading, unfortunately.
We did in the movie. That was the only good part of the movie.
Well, the movie is in fact a masterpiece, but we are currently talking about the tragically inferior manga.
And that's Jacob's true opinion, folks.
Yes.
Welcome back to the episode.
That is my completely unironic, not joking opinion. Can't wait for Editing Sam in the Future's response to that one.
If I wasn't sick right now, I'd strangle you.
Oh, but yeah, we join our heroes as they're getting on the train. It's really just Armstrong crying a lot because
he cares so much. He has so much emotion. He's proud of these young men.
Like, it's just bits. Like, so much of this is just bits. Like,
they're good bits.
You don't understand how much this man feels.
Yeah.
And how much he's...
There's like they lock Al in the livestock.
They put him in the
Yes.
livestock car because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And they don't want him to be lonely in the luggage car.
Yeah.
So mean.
There's a
Oh.
great scene of the people on the like the passengers, and Lust is there. And I had to double check because she is reading a newspaper that says British naval commander murdered.
Oh.
And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, wait, hold on.
Britain exists.
Okay.
Canonically.
I guess Britain exists in this alternate timeline.
So maybe. But then I looked closer and I saw 007 is on there. And then I went on the wiki to look this up. And the people on the wiki seem to think this is just a reference to James Bond. Because apparently in one of the movies where he dies, they announce it in the newspaper by British naval commander was killed. Like that's just his code.
Okay,
job.
so it's just a James Bond reference.
She's reading a newspaper about James Bond.
Whilst being a spy. Yeah, no, actually that tracks.
But yeah, and like the weirdest thing, while they're just stopped at a train station, Armstrong looks out the window and goes, Dr. Marco, my God, we haven't seen him since the Civil War. He used to do a bunch of biological alchemy. You know, I don't know why I've given like I've given a weird scientist voice to Armstrong for some reason.
He has the mustache for it.
Yeah, and he's just running away, and he's just like, you did a lot of experimentation. I think you might even know something about the Philosopher's Stone. And Ed's just like, well, I guess we're getting off on this weirdest coincidence we've ever seen. And like, this just proves that Ed is cursed because Lust gets off the train because she was following him. This is just a bonus. Like, and not a lot of plot happens here. It's really just a bunch of exposition that pays off later in the arc. Like, Marco just researched the Philosopher's Stone. He's just like, that is a real thing the government was having me make. I quit and left that life behind me. Ed's just like, but I want your notes. No, that's something only evil people do. Wait, hold on. Is that suit of armor alive? Wait, hold on. Are you missing an arm and leg? Oh my God, are you evil people? Some would call us that. But I don't believe in God or evil. What?
There is sort of a funny thing that, like, I realized as I was reading, where it feels like Ed and Al tell so many people the crime they committed. It did eventually occur to me that, like, well, no, they're specifically telling the state alchemists that they meet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, presumably they'd have the resources to be able to find that information if they knew to look. But it does feel like Ed and Al give that information away kind of cavalier.
I can only assume they probably cared more about it when they first got Ed his state alchemist badge. I feel like it's kind of just a lie they came up with, but they are slowly realizing, like, day by day that it doesn't actually matter. They've reached a plateau in life where no one actually cares about the crime they committed.
They have power and authority, so they retroactively get away with it.
Yeah. And, like, the victim of their crime is them. So, like,
yeah.
But yeah, going forward in our reading, they literally just tell everyone. Like,
yeah.
The point that I realized they were only telling state alchemists is that the patsy bodyguards that they get later are the only people that they don't tell. I think somebody else, I think Armstrong might be the one who tells the...
Because Armstrong tells everybody that they don't tell. Like... Oh, there's a really cool...
Cares.
Yeah, there's a cool scene where Dr. Marco is just like, that research, it can only lead you straight to hell. And then seemingly the exact same Edward from the last panel we said was really cool. I'm only just noticing right now it's a very similar pose. Goes, I've already seen hell. And this page is the most early 2000s manga nonsense. Like, I love it. I love it so much. Streamline it into my veins. But this is an aesthetic. Yeah.
A better time.
Yep.
Or maybe not. Rose-colored glasses are, but
who knows? Anyway, Dr. Marco says, get the hell out of my office. I never want to see you again. And then they get on the train back to their house to get their arms repaired, and then Dr. Marco has a change of hearts, says, "Hey, by the way, I left all my research in the library. Well, I'm gonna leave now." And then, I'm just gonna leave it here. Dr. Marco goes back home, and nothing bad ever happens to him again.
Oh my God, that's lust.
Oh, damn it! Stop.
I hate it when lust just thrusts itself upon you.
Now we're still talking about the manga, right?
Yeah. And
With
worse,
that statement.
Worse, when lust gets all up inside him, suddenly a young child comes knocking at the door to kill the mood.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yes.
Okay, to kill the mood. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, Dr. Marco, what are you doing with that lady? We're just wrestling.
There is a lot of penetration.
Yes.
I don't know who needs to be told this right now, but we find out that lust can regenerate. She says, "You've killed me once," which implies homunculi can die countless times, blah, blah, blah.
Which sucks.
Yep. She then threatens to murder a little girl who walked in, and then Dr. Marco tells Lust where the research is, and she's just like, "Well, I'm not going to kill either of you, but if you do anything, you're going to get murdered." And then the chapter ends on like the most, we're recurring antagonists. Like,
Lust
Paige,
is willing to kill children.
"Too bad for you, Full Metal boy. You feel like you've made progress, but I am going to roadblock that progress."
Oh, and me reading from the ancient copy from when this originally came out, we learned that, and a little extra at the end, Flame Alchemist, the spin-off manga, is doing well with 152,000 plus chapters.
That's too many. That's too many for a monthly series.
You know what? Roy deserves all those chapters.
So anyway, we get back to the boys' hometown, where conveniently their next door neighbor is an automail technician, which really just, in a series full of coincidences, that's really their saving grace right there.
I do kind of like the fact that because it's like for the title and the main character's gimmick, you got to have like advanced prosthetics, but in the order in which the story gives you information, it establishes that there was a horrible civil war before it brings up the whole, and the prosthetic industry is booming. It's like, yes, it is.
Yep.
I mean, they do provide that dichotomy of like, well, it's not a great thing, but it turned out to be a great thing.
Yeah, it's almost like this country is getting into repeated civil wars and constantly had to build some kind of technology to make prosthetics better and better, because an insane portion of the population is horribly maimed.
Yeah.
Well, sure, it's fine.
I say that out loud, but I'm just realizing
that's how the plastic surgery boom happened in the West.
Well, I'm also saying we almost never see automail NPCs. It's only ever Al Al is a different type of thing. Ed and people Ed are fighting.
Well, it's because the surgery is very painful, very complex, and also expensive.
And expensive. Because the scene where we're introduced to Ed's automail mechanics establishes why don't you get automail? Well, because of these reasons. It's very brisk, very economic world building in that regard.
I do want to just bring this up. There is basically Ed gets into the house. He's arguing with the grandmother, who is the automail technician, and Winry, a character we were being introduced here, but I'm sure you already know, was working in the shop and is in full mechanics gear. And she comes rushing to go see them because she recognizes their voices. And there is a scene of her taking off the top of her mechanics jumpsuit. And for a split second, I'm reading this and I'm like, oh man, they just put a full black sensor bar over her. No, she's just wearing a black tube top.
Canonically, yes, as you do.
But the way this page is framed is just basically a rectangular black bar over her chest as she's changing. And I'm like, that's a choice.
I don't know. It seems very economical. It gets hot under there.
Where?
She's a working girl.
Yeah, she is.
That's all I'm going to say.
Looking like a Final Fantasy
protagonist.
Sure.
Yeah, she does.
Honestly, there's a lot of the settings we've been in. The first chapter really looks like a JRPG. Very steampunk, future punk, but still fantasy, kind of. That vibe.
Yeah, it's weird. Who published this manga, Full Metal Alchemist?
Oh, let me just Google it really quickly. Oh, Square Enix.
You know, I think that might explain it.
That tracks. Look at you lore nerds in the comments going like, hey, hold on. Technically, Square Enix was only founded in 2003, and this started publishing in 2001. Yes, it was published by Enix before they merged. Does that make you feel better? No. So, yeah, there's a lot of back and forth that's really just setting up the, like, dynamic that Winry is the girl next door, like, kind of sibling, but kind of not. She's love interest to Ed, like, older sister to Al.
Yeah.
Yes. Which means she is the one.
But, like, bratty girl next door, love interest, not.
Yeah.
The only female that we're introduced to that is around the same age other than Rose. So it's between Rose and Winry. And
Rose is really winning because
Rose is traumatized, okay? Like, still.
Yeah. Yeah, Rose has got to get over her boyfriend. It's really not attractive. That's a lot of baggage. The views of matter, not the views of the Over Manga Cast.
Yeah, honestly, most of this chapter is just it's filling in the blanks of the Elric brothers' backstory, because it's like we've been being shown piecemeal the night that the sin happened, and this is sort of filling in the last couple of pieces of that. We see like the aftermath of Al carrying Ed's mutilated body to the Rockbell house, and we see stuff about how like they burned down their childhood home.
Mm-hmm. For the insurance money.
For the insurance money. I mean, their deadbeat dad wasn't going to pay their way.
The dad has not been mentioned at all.
No, which is another thing that was very interesting.
The only mention he gets is that when they're talking about the boy's inner strength, particularly Ed, the only mention that the dad gets is their father was strong. I should know. I was his old drinking buddy, and that never comes up again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest. At this point, it feels like the dad could easily be explained away that he died in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Like he's a man who is presumably of drafting age in a civil war. Like
yeah, it's interesting because, you know, it's like obviously the bias of everyone on this pod and probably most of the people listening to this pod already know exactly who the father is. Hell, if you've listened to other episodes of our podcast, you already know. We talked about it on No Read November, but it is sort of interesting that, like, were you to look at it with unbiased eyes, that is the heavy implication that their father wasn't anybody like that their father was perhaps maybe also a prodigy like Ed in particular is, that like perhaps Ed specifically takes after his father to a great degree, but the idea of their father being anyone of particular significance is like evidence to the contrary at this point.
Yeah, the fact that they were two children of a single mother isn't that surprising for the setting they're in. Mm-hmm. Like, so
there's a war going on. War happened.
Well, the war is not currently going on. It ended decidedly, but
well, not if the homunculi have anything to say about it. But that's the rest of the manga.
Got to keep the war machine going.
Yeah, it's making us money.
A war machine that's going around in a single-sized tunnel in a circle underneath Central.
How about that?
I can't remember if it's just Central or if
it's the whole country. The country is circular.
It's more insane. Gotcha.
Yes, it is more insane.
Okay. But yeah, this entire chapter is really just people having conversations with, like, literally different groups of people having conversations with different groups of people to basically give more backstory for the boys, more backstory on what Alphonse's relationship with Ed is, because he's very, like, subservient's kind of the bad word. He naturally just goes with what Ed does.
He's Ed's keeper is ultimately what it's actually kind of a similar relationship to the way that Hawkeye is like, okay, I'm going to follow you in your stupid thing, and then I'm going to save you when you screw yourself over.
And like yeah, it's just them having their different conversations. It's really just a bunch of world building. It's fun. It's nice. It
is more entertaining to experience it yourself than to listen to other people going over it beat for beat.
I did love the one page. It almost turns into a clip show where they're just like, and then we went to a mining town and Ed solved their problem there. And I'm like, don't you dare. We are on chapter 9. You don't get to flash back to the previous
You're 9 episodes in and you're already doing a clip show. What the hell?
I thought manga was the animated series. But yeah, and then we get that one panel of Winry looking sleep deprived and leaning on the balcony out that I remember being on so many people's Facebooks. That one panel is a vibe. But we find out that Winry had been working through the night to get the auto mail repairs done. Also, Ed heals Al, but that was obviously going to happen. And then she finds out that she accidentally forgot a screw.
Oops.
She also forgot one of the pieces of the auto mail.
Oh no, not again.
Well, she works hard.
Not hard enough, though, really.
Yeah, obviously.
Wow. She's only one person.
She's literally part of a 2-person team.
I love how Jay is currently making all of the excuses Winry would make under these exact circumstances.
Really? Y'all are just haters.
And there's the final argument Winry would make.
Yeah.
But with a definitive lead and their bodies restored, at least to the functional level they're used to, they head to Central to follow up on Marco. And
you know what's amazing? They get to go all the way back from their hometown to Central, and they don't have any spin-off adventures, which is that's amazing how that just not a single thing came up in the way. And I bet even filler material doesn't explain what happens in this time period. Oh, what? There was a PS2 game called Full Metal Alchemist and the Broken Angel that summarizes what happens on their little side adventure? Weird.
Oh, I guess that's what it means by the original manga behind the hit anime and video game series. I never really understood that. I didn't know about that.
Hey, Jacob, want to take a wild guess who produced this Full Metal Alchemist and the Broken Angel video game for the PS2?
Nintendo.
I knew you were setting up a bit. I just was surprised how stupid of an answer you gave. I think you're trying to be funny, but you should feel bad for yourself. Like, really.
I never said my jokes were good. I just make them.
Top of the dome. Some land, some don't. We'll find out.
So we make it to Central, and the boys go immediately to follow up on their lead, only to find the entire library has been burned to the ground just days previous. And at this point, I really have to wonder, why does Edward not think it's weird that every time they go someplace, someone dies either the day before or the day after?
Well, don't they connect everything to they connect everything to Scar.
They don't blame the library on Scar.
They don't. They just say it's a weird quinky dink. Oh, that's unfortunate.
I think the big thing is that they're at least when it comes to the library specifically, there's just such a sense of go, go, go. Because we get introduced to another quirky character. I will say one thing that I kind of find interesting about Full Metal Alchemist is the way that they handle their ensemble cast is interesting. Because it feels like we mentioned NPCs, and they're most certainly background characters, but most of the characters that even have passing roles tend to be some kind of quirky. Because it's this is where we're introduced to the Mook bodyguards, and they also have a bit, which is mostly just being scared of Ed until they realize he's not going to pull rank on them.
Yep.
But we're also introduced to someone who had been fired from working at the library because she kept reading things she wasn't supposed to.
But was it that she was not supposed to, or just like she had a reading addiction and was
she was
not
reading? She was reading on the job, but she also admits to reading classified military documents.
Yeah, she was fired for a very good reason, and the fact that, spoiler alert, she gets another like top secret job, really just.
Well, she's really good at what she does, and she has like a photographic memory, so very valuable.
Yeah, it just so happens that the military needs this specific thing. How about that?
Yeah.
And she needs the money because, she wants to take care of her mom.
Well, she doesn't need the money is the problem, but...
she doesn't need the money by the time she gets the job.
So we are skimming over the homunculi who are just hanging out on the roof because they can never be further than 20 feet from a main character, I guess, by like contract or something. It may genuinely actually be a contract, but regardless, they are just on top of the rooftop and they're like, how are we going to find that Isvalin? It's an entire big city. How could we possibly find him? And then Gluttony's just like, hey, I smell an Isvalin who's covered in blood. Oh, really? That's really convenient. Can I eat him? Yeah, go ahead, man. That solves all our problems. I'm gonna go do that now. And then they have a cool fight scene.
Well, they have a cool setup for a fight scene that happens off panel. The like image of Gluttony in the gloom is really cool.
Oh, I see. They explode a wall and then the fight happens next. Yeah, okay. So they basically find the quirky girl we mentioned earlier who has the gimmick that her house is full of books. And, maybe if she was short on money, that would have been a solution. But turns out she has a photographic memory and can remember everything she's ever read, including every top secret document stored in the library of top secret military documents. And Ed's just like, hold on, you have Dr. Marco's research? And she's like, yes, I've memorized it all. Oh, cool. Transcribe that for me. Can do. Here it is. 1,000 daily recipes. It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook!
After the, reveal that happens over the course of the next couple of pages, if you actually pay attention to Ed, he does immediately understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reaction panel of everyone going, huh? It's like a sketchy joke panel for Ed too, but he's like it's a happy smiley face, and they cut around Ed's face until he gives the reveal of it's actually a code.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
But it was mostly because, alchemy in itself, even though there's the law of equivalent exchange, it always has been, at least how it's been framed in the series, is like a recipe of itself. So it would not be so crazy for someone's classified notes to read like a cookbook, because that is what alchemy is.
And also, state alchemists will generally keep all of their notes in code because they usually are researching things that have an extreme capacity for danger. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of a fun bit where they keep where Ed and Al mention a couple of the various ways that some of the state alchemists so far introduced will encode their notes, and I don't understand Mustang's system at all.
He has a system. Don't touch anything.
It's all of his notes are women's names.
It's a system. It works for him.
I'm going on a date with Miss Sabrina tonight. And I genuinely don't know if the joke there is that Alphonse just thinks that's a coded message and that's actually just Rory's constantly going on dates with loose women.
Because that is true. That's established.
Both things can be true at the same time.
I mean, also, why would Alphonse know how Mustang keeps his alchemy notes?
That is a good point.
But anyway, this is also where we get established that Ed says Ed's got a research grant that is for yearly research. Just insane. The government is just footing his bill to do whatever he wants.
Well, you also have to look at the fact that they obviously sponsored these crazy scientists, so very much the threshold of at any cost is very, very
the government's discretional spending is very smart and well planned out, and there will be no problems associated with this in the future.
But yeah, they basically spend a whole bunch of time cracking through the notes. They don't make much progress. And then Photographic Memory Girl, who has a name I don't remember, shows up, and she helps them decode because she's super good at everything.
I don't think she actually...
She doesn't do much, actually.
Yeah, she doesn't do much.
She says she's going to help.
She does help. She provides emotional support.
It's mostly it's establishing she gets a job because we needed to wrap that up in a bow. The big breakthrough comes in. It's one of those ones where it's like they've been hitting a stone wall. They finally break through, and the thing on the other side is horror.
Yeah, because you remember how I made that "to serve man" reference? Turns out it's a bit more applicable than originally thought. The secret ingredient is people.
But is this better or worse than Soylent?
Well, Soylent's just made from soy. Soylent Green is what's made from people.
Yes.
I mean, you don't eat philosopher. Well, actually, I think the homunculi do, but I don't know. I think I don't know. I feel like philosopher stones are more broadly applicable, but I don't know if that makes them better or worse.
Philosopher stones have at one point helped someone, so better, I guess.
Yeah, we'll go with better. If you're going to kill thousands upon thousands of people for a materialistic purpose, make it a philosopher stone and not Soylent Green.
Yeah. They then find the aftermath of the gluttony scar fight, where basically a sewer just exploded.
This is mostly setting up something that's going to happen in our next reading when we come back to this eventually.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I hope people enjoy this episode.
Really? It is kind of just like a weird setup of they're like, hey, you think it's really convenient that Dr. Marco's research lab was right next to a prison? Yeah. Do you think it's really convenient that bodies aren't allowed to be returned to the families of prisoners? Yeah. Do you think maybe they were secretly taking the bodies of people they were saying they were executing to actually be turned into philosopher stones? They had to be getting those living people from somewhere. That's really cool. Let's go into a set that seems to come straight out of Soul Eater. And do.
This is also very JRPG because they're going to the dungeon.
Like literally, they go past, like it's literally a cutscene to get into the gate, and then suddenly they're in the abandoned warehouse where you need like the boost up to get Ed into the vent. And I love, they get Edward into the vent, and you think he's going to be like solid snaking it, sneaking through the vent. But then you remember his arm and leg weigh like 100 pounds. So he's just clang, clang, clang.
Stealth mode.
Yeah. And if you were expecting them to investigate a cool abandoned factory, that doesn't happen. Because essentially Edward falls out into a big room with a boss in it, and Alphonse finds the sub-boss who is just roaming around the courtyard. So they both fight two suits of armor people. It's not revealed immediately, but it's revealed pretty soon to immediately.
They're also drawn exactly the way Al is. It's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
They fight two random encounters.
Yeah, basically. I mean, they're more akin to like Dark Souls bosses. Like,
yeah.
Al was just unfortunately like fighting the optional boss outside.
And you know the optional bosses are always harder. Yeah. Good thing Ed says Al is stronger than he is in a fight.
Yep. And I mean, honestly, it's just a really cool fight scene. I think Edward's is a little better, but like they're both good.
The thing about these two fight scenes is that for the case with Al's fight, the actual fight itself isn't that difficult because Al is just so good in a fight. So it's the psychological
weaknesses.
And has no weaknesses. So like Al's fight is is like a psychological thing, whereas Ed's fight is a shonen battle. You know, like here's the glowing weak point to strike for massive damage. I know you're going for that, so I'm going to defend it. How will you deal with that?
Yeah, because Edward's fighting the dude who's just like, I'm an honorable samurai, but I was a death row inmate whose soul was put in a suit of armor. Meanwhile, Alphonse is fighting the dude who's just like, hey, did you know there's an urban legend about a butcher who got bored of butchering cows and then decided that butchering people would be very good? They call him Barry the Butcher. How weird. My name's Barry. Maybe
And then, like,
I'm a butcher.
Al, like, deadass is just like, I'm from out of town. Who are you?
Al responds genuinely like, cool, man. I don't care. Are we going to go back to... He is the Dark Souls player who's just mashing A through
all the dialogue. He never reads an item description. Doesn't care.
Yeah. You're something like an aborted fetus that's using the blood moon to kill people and rip their spines out or something. I don't care. I want to fight.
Fight. Yeah.
Does your boss weapon have better strength scaling than the one I'm currently using? That is all I care about right now.
But yeah.
His own lore in the actual fight that was happening.
Man, a guard does come to try and help Alphonse by shooting the guy, except he just gets his head cut in clean half, which is just...
Well, actually, here's the interesting thing. That guard was supposed to be there to help the serial killer, because he was one of the people who was supposed to keep people out. Barry the Butcher even laments that later when other people start showing up. It's like, shouldn't the guards have gotten rid of you? Oh, that's right, I killed the guard. Well, that was my B.
I think the guard isn't aware the facility houses serial killers.
No. The guard clearly has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just kind of amusing that, like, the guard was on that guy's side and he cuts the top of his head off.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Edward's like in a final boss room. There's a big alchemy circle in this giant stone cathedral.
It's an arena.
Yeah. And then we find out that Edward is fighting a tiered boss fight because he knocks the helmet off the dude, and then his body stands up, and the guy in the helmet goes, whoever said you could only put one soul in a suit of armor? That's my brother's soul who's moving the body around. And then,
oh no, there's a phase 2. Oh God.
Meanwhile, what Edward should have said is just like, wait, so you can only control the head? What practical purpose does that serve in your suit of armor body? Shut up!
It means I can dramatically reveal one weak spot for you to stop so that another weak spot can be there so you can keep the fight going.
So, just counterpoint. You start off a fight by being all honorable and showing your weak spot. Why not just not do that if you're going to be lying? Like, I guess on the off chance they can fall for the fact that the body's gonna come to life, I guess.
So the thing is, specifically the reason is he's not honorable, he's a thrill seeker. He showed where his sigil was because the opponent could potentially kill him, and he gets the thrill from that specifically. He's wearing a like vaguely heroic suit of armor, but he's not honorable per se. He's just like a pugilist.
Mm-hmm. Fair. But yeah, really, I don't know why they put a soul in only the helmet.
You could have gotten 3 bodyguards instead of 2. Like, that feels like a bad choice by the people doing this, because it's not like it was the brothers' choice.
Yeah,
well, maybe they were experimenting because research. How many souls can you bind to a suit of armor?
Honestly, that now that you say that, that makes a lot of sense.
It's 100% that probably, but like that just opens up weird questions about Al, why he can even control his helmet at all, because that's not connected to the suit of armor, but it's magic. It doesn't matter. But the main thing about this fight is that basically the suit of armor Edward's fighting shouts out die at him, and that causes him to like kind of have a flashback to Scar saying die, and that causes a little connection in his brain to fire as he's just like, hold on, I don't have time to do alchemy, he's attacking me too quick. what if I only do half of alchemy? And he touches the suit of armor and disintegrates it, identically to how Scar uses his technique. It's not explained that's what he's doing, but like he flashes back to Scar and then does a technique that's identical. Like,
yeah, it's clear. Yeah, this is a case of it is showing, not telling. It doesn't need to explain that.
And then Edward's just like, hey, don't worry, I'm not going to murder you because you're human beings. No, we're suits of armor. Yeah, but no, you're human beings because my brother is identical to you guys and he's a human being and I can't kill you, even if that's what you say would be easier, because that is just ideologically incompatible with me viewing my brother as a human being. So, which is just such an interesting like line from Ed, because that is him going, logically, I could convince myself you're not actually human beings. I am not going to do that calculation because I do not like what that outcome implies. Which is a very interesting like way to go at it, because like that is who we've been established is Edward. He's a very logical person who is deluding himself in this one way.
Yeah, like he's the thing is he's logical to a literal fault. From an emotional perspective, you can establish that these unrepentant serial killers who enjoy hurting and killing people, who have also lost their human bodies, don't necessarily deserve the same consideration that your brother does, who's in this situation because of a mistake the two of you made. You can make that emotional separation, but because he's so if then in the way that he thinks, if he lets himself go down that line of thinking, that will always linger in the back of his mind and make him question. It goes to like the whole thing of like Ed going in and like, by the way, your entire belief system is complete nonsense. Let me ruin this for you and not give you an alternative. Like it's that same problem. It's if he were to dehumanize these monsters, because they are, then it would put in his head the idea that his entire philosophy is wrong.
It's like you said earlier, Jacob, no one's immune to propaganda. They have to want to believe a thing. And Edward really wants to believe that he didn't just make a homunculus that thinks it's his brother.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you know, it's the thing that's really interesting is a case where and it's like this isn't part of our reading because I think it's pretty obvious in the way it presents it, because the psychological battle that Al is dealing with right now, and I actually really like the guy he's fighting is kind of a little bit of an idiot, but he's also a sadistic serial killer, and he has to have at least been some level of competent to rack up the bodies he claims to have. I like the angle that he goes at Al, because he wants to scare his victim. That didn't work. Okay, what is a weakness I can pick at? And he just keeps talking until he finds something that is able to scare Al. And the idea that he's not a real boy is what Barry the Butcher does to get under Al's, well, not skin, but armor, I guess.
I like the idea that while Barry was sitting in prison or waiting for awaiting execution, the like library book cart came around and he was just like, well, I can't butcher, so I might as well read. What's this book on existential philosophy? Better just read all of this. This might come up later.
Psychology for dummies. I'm a dummy.
Ship of Theseus. Huh.
But yeah, like the thing that's sort of the getting back to the point I was building to. The thing is, and I think it's pretty obvious from our reading, even though I also know that later on this will be confirmed, Ed is right that his brother is in fact a real boy. But he's got
nothing that can prove that.
He has no way of proving it, and that causes him such a degree of emotional stress. And that is one of the character flaws he needs to overcome. You know, he has like such a violent aversion to the idea of faith, but like even scientific rigor requires some level of axiom that at the very least what you're experiencing with your senses isn't all a lie. Cogito ergo sum. And I love that. I love the fact that like this is a case where the character is right, but there's still the doubt, and that is like the core of like his character flaw that will lead to growth later on.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the juxtaposition that when Edward faces a situation he's not like too keen on, it's him denying it and pushing that shit down. And Alphonse,
I am not having this conversation, not with you, and most certainly not with me.
Meanwhile, Alphonse, skipping around a little bit, but Alphonse stares deeply into a mirror in the dark and then punches that mirror into shards.
I'm just saying, like, would we say that this is like a certain level of imposter syndrome?
Yes. I like the deepest level of imposter syndrome you could possibly feel.
Yeah.
Not only is your career fake, literally everything about you.
This is a supernatural degree of imposter syndrome. Boy, it's like me and Sam on the Over Manga Cast. You thought we were bad. Al doesn't believe he even exists.
Well, what is that psychological condition where, you know, people, it's related to dementia or something, but they believe that, I don't know, their loved ones are not real or something? I don't know what it's called, but it just reminded me of that.
Well, poor boy's got it at 14. Jeez.
I'm just saying, it was very, like, deep, and I'm like, this hits hard. Why are you going to tell this boy you might not even be real?
Yeah, I mean, counterpoint. Barry really lucked out with this line of questioning that conveniently the boys burned down their childhood home and any evidence that Alphonse existed as a person.
Yeah, like there's no baby pictures or anything, I don't think.
Which is weird because in the like 4 comas at the end of the volume, they do have baby pictures of Al.
Which is weird because, like, if they burned all this down, what did their family friends just keep the pictures then? I guess that's the solution there.
Well, their family friends are the automail shop next door, but
I'm just saying.
Also, the 4 comas are a joke because it has Alphonse as a baby suit of armor and a diaper.
You can't prove that's not true.
Actually, funnily enough, okay, so again, I feel like the manga does a good job of establishing this, so I don't mind using this knowledge from the rest of the series. It is interesting. I don't think we've actually... Oh, no, there is one shot of Al being disintegrated in the transmutation. I was going to say, I don't think we've seen Al yet, but no, one of the early ones does actually show him breaking apart.
Yes.
Though it does have his face blocked. So I wonder if there was some intention of like, could it be?
Obviously,
I feel like
there's an element of could it be? What's real?
I wouldn't be surprised because the one thing I am picking up repeatedly in our reading is in the manga, especially, it does a lot of here is a thread that can go in any direction. I'm going to place that down. There's not a lot of like built up plot threads at this point in our reading. It's a lot of just like, this could be filled in with, this is a blank that could be filled in with anything in the future.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. Like, I'm not saying that's bad writing, but like, and honestly, that's clearly the writing style.
And honestly, I think it fits very well for Full Metal Alchemist as a narrative because this is about like Full Metal Alchemist is about like ideas and beliefs and philosophies. And a lot of the questions that it presents that it's like, you know, it's like fiction being a like lens upon reality and being like a way of exploring real world concepts through the fantastic. The things that Full Metal Alchemist addresses that are like the real world concepts underneath all of the fiction are, for the most part, if not exclusively, questions that don't have definitive answers. So the fact that it does this thing of like, here's what's probably true, and it's like, this is where it's like, you know, like there's sort of the assumption that like, yes, Al is in fact a real boy, and like there's enough evidence that you're pretty sure it's true, but there's always that lingering doubt because you don't know. And like that, it does that with a lot of different elements of the story. Like there's one bit that, and this feels a little bit more like setting up for the future kind of thing, but it still falls under the same category of like, you don't know. They have a full on shot of Roy Mustang being a villain, and I will take over the country one day. And it's like, that ultimately ends up being like he has an ideal world he wants to build is something that is very well known about that character at this point. But they present it in such a way that feels actively threatening. We've not met Bradley yet. Like he's been in some 4 comas. That's it. So I think it's a good style for what Full Metal Alchemist is trying to be.
So we had the fight with Al that concludes with him getting rescued. That's not really either there. But more importantly, we stepped off with Edward saying, no, we're not going to talk about this. How about you just tell me who you work for? And the suit of armor he's fighting literally gets to go, they wouldn't like it if I told you who they were.
But
you know what?
I will tell you.
Those guys. I work for...
Stab.
And like, there was a throwaway line from Lust where she's like, ooh, that was close. But I'm like, Lust, you're lying. You were waiting in the shadows for when it was dramatically appropriate to kill this guy. That's the only way the scene makes sense. Like, you didn't just walk in here.
Honestly, given the fact that it's Lust and Envy specifically, and the way that they've been characterized up to this point, I 1,000% believe that they were definitely waiting there for the right dramatic moment to do.
Yes, it wasn't time yet. They're waiting the cue. Just sitting there in the shadows, watching that, making commentary on their punches.
Now, this chapter is just the homunculi chapter. And this is the most, like, serialized mystery show of our reading, at least. But it's literally just them going like, yes, aren't we mysterious villains? We can't kill you yet, Elric boy, but we are very good at fighting. If only you didn't have some kind of disadvantage. But you are fully fighting fit, so we'll just show you how much stronger we are. And you won't win because you're already weakened. Oh, yeah, but I'll beat you while I'm weakened because I'm a shonen protagonist. Oh, nope, my arm just slipped out of its socket.
Unfortunate. I don't know. To some degree, I almost kind of felt like because they're setting up the fact that like the government was in on human people, Soylent Green farms and such. There was some degree of obviously the homunculi aren't good guys because Lust has been killing so many people, but it almost feels kind of like they're well-intentioned extremists in this. I know that's not true because of my knowledge of the rest of the series, but I almost got a little in this scene in particular. I almost got a little bit of a vibe of maybe they're against the government, because the government's the bad guy in this. Yeah, that they're not evil because they're against the government, sort of thing. That doesn't happen because I know how the rest of the series plays out, but it feels in that chapter like they're setting up that as a possibility, which kind of goes back into the whole it presents questions without giving answers because real life mysteries don't have clean solutions, sort of thing. I don't know. I might be the only one who got that vibe, but
I can't tell if that's what the manga is trying to portray as what is diegetic, or if the mangaka has created characters that are just fun villains and knows people are going to love them, so portrays them goofy and the same way every NPC is portrayed. So maybe that's just writer's taste kind of
I could see that too. I could see that too.
Yeah, because they're very hammy villains. Even in what they're doing right now, they're very hammy.
I mean, they're diegetically hammy because, again, they had to have been waiting for that.
Yeah, and I'm just oh man, they hit Ed enough times that he blacks out, which is weird because Envy did specifically say, "You're lucky your arm got knocked out of its socket, or I'd have to beat you to within an inch of your life." And I'm like,
"You just did anyway."
Knocking him unconscious is kind of doing that, but as Ed's passing out, they're having a whole monologue back and forth, and they end on a super ominous line of even if he does find out something, it's too late. our plan is already in the final stage. And I'm just looking at the chapter count, and then I Google how many chapters are in Full Metal Alchemist, and I'm like,
That's a lie.
13 out of 108. Maybe. I guess in terms of years, but
that's some ominous bullshit to keep people reading, is what that is.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But yeah, they blow up the building. Alphonse is going to run back in, but Envy comes out carrying knocked out Edward Elric. I was gonna say, despite the fact that Envy's dressed like a homunculus, but I don't think any other character has seen a homunculus yet.
No, they're just weirdly dressed.
They're just incredibly weirdly dressed.
Yeah.
This very androgynous individual came carrying Ed and handed him over to me, and then disappeared when my back was turned. Anyway,
yeah, literally. Yep.
We get some foreshadowing for Kimberly. That's not important for our purposes. And then we get the scene of Edward in the hospital bed as he's being nursed back to health. And the two lackeys are just like, yeah, no, we're technically subservient to you because you're like 4 ranks ahead of us, but you're a child, so we can tell you what to do.
That was incredibly stupid, and you should be ashamed of your behavior.
I mean, hey, when you're right, you're right.
Yeah, but I am also a shonen protagonist, so I'll do it again.
Yep. Ed calls Winry to say that he broke the arm already and expects her to get really mad. But if you remember, Winry forgot to install the part. So that's
She's
probably
like,
why it broke.
Oh, that's kind of weird how that happened. I don't know.
I do want to point it out right here. Earlier, it got mentioned that Winry had replaced the material in his arm with some chrome plated ones, and like the trade-off there was it's more rust resistant but less durable. And I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, Winry, he gets into fights.
He tells you this.
Why would you give him something less durable?
Because she wants to see him again.
That's not the way to do it. Like,
I guess she wants to see him again in a body bag.
Yeah. And we get
like Winry doesn't make good decisions. That's not. We love her, but it's not because of that.
Yeah, and she's gonna come to Central to fix him up because she knows it's literally just one part, and if she can do it without Ed finding out, she isn't gonna get yelled at. Which fair, because if things had gone differently, she could have got him killed. Like, they have like a back and forth.
That's something you take to the grave.
Yeah. And we end on a little back and forth of them going like, ooh, did you just call me your girlfriend? She's not my girlfriend! And while he's having this like cute shonen rom-com nonsense, the scene
Al is staring into the abyss.
Yes.
Little does he know the abyss is staring back. Which is so funny that it's like an incredibly dark panel, and then the ending page for the volume is just a shirtless sketch of Lieutenant Armstrong. But yeah, that is Full Metal Alchemist. Really, just a classic. We finally got around to it. We just needed to wait for Sam not to be here because it's a known fact he hates Full Metal Alchemist and would have gone off in a rage if he'd ever even heard it mentioned.
Sam, known FMA hater.
Yep.
Unless it's the live action movie, which is, in his opinion, an absolute masterpiece, as we all know.
Yes, this is factually true. Yes.
Known thing about Sam, he actually is a Full Metal Panic fan and really just refuses to acknowledge anything else by the title Full Metal. Not even a big fan of Full Metal Jacket. So, without further ado, let's go through favorite character, favorite fight. So, I'll start off. This is Matt here. I gotta say, in this reading, I know it's a cliche pick, but it's really hard to not say Winry. Winry's just got some of the funniest scenes. She doesn't come up a lot, but like when she is, she really like owns. There's a clear picture of what her character is, and I feel like she exists in a good place in where her scenes are. That being said, favorite fight. I got to go with the train fight. I know we skimmed over it, but there is just some insane nonsense done with alchemy that is really fun.
It's just fun.
Ugh. Next up, Jacob. Favorite character, favorite fight.
My God, I forgot how much I absolutely freaking adore Al. There are like two characters I want to say are my favorite, which is Ed, because I want to be like the fully character developed version of Ed. And I also really, really like Rose as a character. Like I love the way that she like reacts to revelations and the like staring into the abyss. What am I supposed to believe in now? But my God, Al makes every scene he's in so much better. He's just so done, and yet he is also so charming and affable and like willing to help you, whoever you are. There's a moment in the train scene where he walks into a room. One of the hostage takers is like, guy in armor, start shooting, and Al's like, wait, no, the bullets will ricochet and hit you. Okay, they already hit you. I tried to warn you that was a bad idea. Another guy bursts in, guy in armor, start shooting. Wait, the bullets are gonna ricochet. Are you guys stupid? It's just like there's such a charm in the way that he's done with everything. It just makes me happy. And then favorite fight has got to be the two-phase Dark Souls fight. Man, I hate it when they delay their attacks in the second phase. But yeah, like it's a boss fight and it's fun. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Though I will say, one of the like after like bonus chapter specials, this I believe got adapted into an episode in the anime, like the like license thingy fight between Ed and Roy is a close second, because that's a fun little bit.
I do love how the manga has even less justification for why this fight needs to happen.
Yeah, it is literally just a bit in the manga.
It's just like, hey, we're going to have these two main characters fight who would never fight for any other reason. Go for it.
And like all of the buildup before the actual fight is Mustang being like, no one would ever approve. No one would ever want this. A bunch of people have stupid justifications for wanting it. No one would approve this. A bunch of stupid justifications for approving it. It's really funny.
And finally, Jay. Favorite character, favorite fight.
Favorite character? That was hard because, of course, I was leaning more towards
Armstrong?
Yes, actually. Just a lot of... Just when he appeared, he reactivated some core memories. So he's my favorite character. However, I would have to say for my favorite fight, I'd have to go back to Barry the Chopper, because what the heck?
It's just fun.
I just love the deadpan. Like, Al's just like, why would I care? Why do you think I would know this? What are you doing? You are just spitting plot at me. Stop. Just stop.
When you're losing a fight so bad, you got to send your opponent into existential spiraling.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Al's just mashing the skip button.
Yes.
Hate these cutscenes. Why is this unskippable?
And finally, would you continue reading?
I don't know.
Yeah, Jay, how about you start us off? Would you continue reading?
I actually don't know. While I am encouraged that there are a lot of little plot tidbits and character background that is further elaborated on some of the, well, for me, I can only speak for myself, like plot gaps I might have had or had observed. I think I've consumed enough of this material. I love FMA. I think I need a break.
You don't need to experience a fourth version of Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes.
A fifth if you've played the Vita games.
Oh my god. I just think I enjoy it. I enjoy this series, and I encourage everyone to read it or familiarize yourself with it if you are not already. I don't need to consume 4 and 5 versions of it. I get it.
Honestly, fair.
Yeah. Matt here. So would I continue reading? You know, of a lot of the older series we read, I kind of come back to it with like fresh eyes from like, I don't know, it might even just be recency bias. And I'm just like, this feels dated. And like, Fullmetal Alchemist does feel dated. Like it feels like a 2000s manga because it is. Like it has the hallmarks of that time. That being said, I don't have like the knee-jerk reaction of thinking, ew, that old, I don't like it, because I have no taste, I guess. But yeah, I enjoyed this. And I'm on the fence about whether or not that means I would continue reading. Because as I said earlier, I have watched all of Brotherhood, and I really like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. But Brotherhood is very faithful to the manga, at least from what I've read so far. So I don't know. I don't see any flaws with it as a manga. So yes, I would continue reading in an ideal world where I hadn't watched all of Brotherhood. And finally, Jacob, would you continue reading?
I hope so, for goodness sake. Honestly, having done this reading, I think I might, to some degree, finally have a bit of an idea as to why I bounce off of Fullmetal Alchemist. So, back in the day, and this is not so much true anymore with streaming services, but back in the day, I don't think I necessarily had full access to the anime. It was difficult for me to just sit down and watch it all the way through, binge it the way I want to. The way I would now with streaming services.
Had to do the old watch a 3-part video on YouTube, 8 minutes time.
Episode 3, part 2, part 1.
Jacob is ancient, yes.
Post in the comments below if you know what we're talking about.
But yeah, so I think the problem was that the anime was difficult. Like, I could see parts of the anime, but I never really had the opportunity to just sit down and experience it the way I wanted to. So then why don't I go to the manga? And I will say, whilst I genuinely loved the reading and I do want to continue reading, I did get the strong vibes that this was a prototype for something that could be more complete. And having watched the anime, I think that version is the anime. So I honestly feel like I'd rather continue watching than reading. And now that there are streaming services, I should just sit down and do that. I'm pretty sure I have a subscription to a streaming service that has Fullmetal Alchemist, so I should just do that now. That said, though, reading specifically, there is a particular charm to this, and it does fill the space of its medium fairly well. So I would definitely continue reading. The only thing that would hold me back is all of the other things that we read on this podcast. Yes, this is high enough on the list that I would definitely say I'd continue reading, but I do think that the anime is maybe a bit better than the manga.
So, like I've kind of been mentioning, how this has like the very big feel that it leaves a blank space to like fill in with what the actual mystery is later.
The anime knew what the mystery was.
Yeah, anime doesn't have that problem. It knows that Ed is going to be very sad about Nina for like several chapters and goes, maybe we should spend more time on that, you know?
Yeah. Which I think is where the prototype feeling vibe comes from, because the anime did have the advantage of being an adaptation.
Maybe we should include more scenes of his dad in the character flashbacks.
That sounds like something that would have been like a board meeting of like, okay, we need to really beef these out a little bit more.
But I don't like it when media is designed by committee, so I'm on the fence about whether or not that's good.
No, you know what this scene needs? It needs Ed to punch the wall and for a big PNG crack to appear in the wall with no sound effect. That's what would really sell this scene.
Make it happen.
I don't know how to transition from that.
So what are we reading next time?
That's not where that goes. So always, that wraps up our episode. As always, we appreciate reviews in any and all forms. You can reach out to us wherever you can find podcast reviews. You can also reach out to us over mangacast.com, where there's a nice little comment section at the bottom. You can go ahead and send us something through that. Or if you like things the old-fashioned way, you can reach out over mangacast@gmail.com. We love taking recommendations. We got some theme months coming up, so good luck.
Might be a little bit. You can also find us on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Give us, tell us to read more Full Metal Alchemist so I can finally get this off my list. Or other old or new manga that you want us to read.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to bring this episode to a merciful close. Hey, Sam, what are we reading next week? Jay, what are we reading next week?
Oh God, this must be a mistake because no, absolutely not. It says here reading "Kill 6 Billion Demons," book 3.
I'm not punished for my prank.
Yes, there's more. Kill 6 billion demons. Why?
Hey, while we're on the episode, do you want to explain where you went after the first Kill 6 Billion Demons episode?
I went to the Shadow Realm.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Yeah, it's a place.
It's not a place. I was punished for my prank. No!
Good night, everybody.
The consequences of my action, equivalent exchange.
Good night. Sleep tight. Or not.